first of all, you have to believe. You have to trust yourself. You have to trust what's in you. And then you can't be afraid of people not liking what you play. I think once you get to that point, okay, some people are going to like me, some people aren't. Such is life. Then you will have the opportunity to truly be yourself.
Did you ever wonder what it's like to study the saxophone at one of the world's very best jazz programs? In this episode of the BetterSax podcast, Brad Leali, professor of saxophone at the University of North Texas, gives us a rundown of the entire curriculum that he works on with his students. So while you could never replace the experience of being part of a program like that, just knowing exactly what they learn, practice, and work on is incredibly insightful for any saxophone player. You're about to have the equivalent of a fantastic saxophone lesson from a master teacher. I personally learned a lot, and there's a gem towards the end about cadenzas that I've been practicing since we had this conversation, and it's just one of many invaluable takeaways packed into 40 minutes. Please enjoy this session with Brad Leali. Brad Leali, great to meet you, and I'm excited to talk to you about all things saxophones. Why don't you tell us all about what you do and where you're at?
Okay, well, presently I am the professor of jazz saxophone at the University of North Texas. I've been here since 2008. Before then, I was the director of jazz studies at Texas Tech University for 3 years. And then before that, I was in New York for a number of years, born and raised in Denver, Colorado, and then went to school at North Texas, then moved to New York and lived there for a long time. And so now I'm presently professor over here and still touring, kind of doing my thing and making a living doing those types of things.
Right. Yeah. So the University of North Texas, that's renowned for the jazz program, nationwide, worldwide. Yeah. But for those who are unfamiliar, maybe you could talk a little bit about the program and what's going to happen, the sort of students you end up getting and what those people end up doing in their careers afterward.
Okay, well, we're probably North Texas had the first degree in jazz. With, of course, the world-renowned 1 O'Clock Lab Band is probably what we're most known for. We've had several, great players come through here. Lou Marini, Lyle Mays, so many others. Billy Hart was at North Texas. In fact, I think he was the first black saxophone player in the 1 O'Clock. And then, of course, he went on to play with Lee Morgan and so many great players. But Charlie Young, another phenomenal saxophone player that was in our program. We've had a pretty renowned jazz program for a number of years. We tend to attract a lot of the top jazz students from around the world, and they come here, they learn how to. One of the good things about this university for me, is that they learn not only how to play jazz, but they learn how to play classical saxophone. They learn how to read, they learn how to write, they learn how to play within a section. They know their doubles are, of course, part of their daily routine. So we try to give them these foundations so that when they graduate from this school, not only can they play, not only can they improvise, but they can also get into a lot of other musical situations. So they have so many options. So our players tend to, most of them move to New York, but all over Nashville, LA, all over the world, and they do a plethora of things.
Right. So the idea being getting people ready to be able to perform in all different professional situations and recording. Absolutely. And then, of course, teaching is a big part of everybody's musical career when you're in jazz or classical, pretty much. So then you're well prepared to then do that part of the thing as well.
Right.
Okay. So when students come in, so you're getting the students, I imagine there's other saxophone teachers at the university.
Yeah, well, we have a classical saxophone professor, and I'm the jazz professor, and then I have TFs that work under me, and they teach as well.
Okay, so when students come in as freshmen, if they're in the jazz program, they're studying with you from the beginning.
They do study with me. I have a master class the first year for all incoming freshman students. So we have a master class which meets twice a week. We also have a saxophone departmental where all of the jazz saxophone studio, we come and play transcriptions, they perform, we talk, we have guest artists come in and meet with them. So that first year, they're all meeting with me. The second year, that's when they start lessons. The first year, they're only taking classical lessons.
Oh.
But they're meeting with me as well. The second year, then they have jazz lessons and classical lessons.
Wow.
And,
okay, I was not aware of that. That's pretty surprising and interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a freshman at North Texas. You come in and the first year you're taking classical lessons, but you're also meeting so that you have these two classes. One is the master class, and then the other one is where you're playing through transcriptions and like analyzing solos, that sort of thing.
Absolutely.
And could you just quickly run down how those two classes work? Like, what's a typical session like?
Okay. Well, in my master classes, we deal with a wide variety of topics. Breathing. I just saw this thing with you and Vince Herring where you were talking about breathing. We talk about breathing, which is the importance of breathing, phrasing, articulation, intonation. I'm trying to prepare them to be successful saxophone players, not only in this school, but once they get out of school. So we're dealing with all of those issues. We have several assignments for finger dexterity, several assignments, as I was saying, for breathing, several assignments that deal with articulation and phrasing. They're responsible for many transcriptions. We have classes where we're just sight reading within a saxophone section. So we have a saxophone section with a rhythm section.
So
and we're talking.
I'm sorry, I guess I have so many questions about all of that because it's very interesting. So, first of all, how many students are there in these master classes?
Typically, I'll accept around 11 to 13 at the most.
Okay, and it seems to me it's sort of like it's set up to be. This is all the stuff. These are the most fundamental common things we all need to learn. So rather than me teaching you those things one-on-one each week,
right.
The first year, we're all kind of getting into this content first, because this is just the base. This is what everybody needs before we go on to okay, what sort of a player are you going to be? What direction are you going to go in? We all need to have this common ground really sorted out, before we move on. Okay. And then could you give us a few examples of like the transcriptions that are assigned typically?
Okay. Well, I know most of the incoming students are very familiar with a lot of the modern players that are out that are very popular on the scene, but not a lot of them know the history of the saxophone. So I have them doing specific, they do this, whatever they want to transcribe, but they have like every semester is different. For this past semester, I think they had on saxophone, well, they usually have 3 transcriptions that are due a semester. So a typical saxophone, one assignment would be like Earl Bostic, Yusef Lateef, Sonny Red Kiner, Eddie Cleanhead Vincent, Lou Donaldson, names that, of course, everyone, they're dealing with Bird as well, but kind of names that they're really not familiar with, right? So we deal with the saxophone, and then we have, it'll be Barry, tenor, alto. Then I'll also assign them transcriptions for trumpet players, like Kenny Dorham, Blue Mitchell, Miles, transcribe a piano player, Barry Harris, Sonny Clark, Wynton Kelly, things of like that. And then maybe a guitarist, Wes Montgomery, Grant Green, names like this. I want them to be able to realize that we are saxophone players, but we relate to all instrumentalists: trumpet, trombone, piano, guitar, all of them can inform us and help us to find our direction. So that's how we deal with transcriptions.
Right. Well, I think, that's extremely valuable because on a lot of levels, because you're getting familiar with musicians that you might not even check out or even listen to. They might not, be on your radar. And then the other part is when you start listening and transcribing other instruments, you get all of the benefits of that. As maybe it's thinking about things from a different perspective, or what lays easier on different instruments and how different ideas come out, and it gets us away from some of the language and vocabulary that does is more common.
Absolutely. And I also do it so that they're aware of the roles that these other instrumentalists play in a situation of a combo or a small group, big band, what have you. We're transcribing these piano players, right? But also check out how they comp, how they're comping behind each soloist, how they're comping, how they're interacting with the drummer. Let's check out the bass. Let's check out the drums. Let's check out these roles and see how they all work together, as opposed to just being a saxophone player.
Skipping over the other parts of this song, right? Okay, saxophone solo's over. I'm going to skip to the next tune. Okay, well, could you get into a little bit more detail, especially for those people, the students that are, that might not be doing this sort of thing yet, or are already doing it but want to get more out of it? Could you go into a little bit more detail about that particular assignment? Does it mean you have to write it out as well as memorize it and be able and perform it, or what are you looking for the finished assignment?
Okay, so for the first assignment, they can write it out, but they have to learn it by ear. I do suggest that they write it out at some point, not only for the historical significance of, years down, they'll look back and say, wow, I did this. Let me check this out. Maybe I can learn this. Maybe I didn't notice this before. But, okay, so I definitely have them write it down at some point, and also to learn how to read, because I do believe that if you write rhythms, then you learn rhythms. So that's for me, that's an extremely important component to reading, recognizing rhythms. So that's one aspect. I want them to play the transcriptions exactly, or as exact as they can, because I want them to be familiar, like I said, with articulation, the phrasing, the sound, the dynamics, if we're able to hear those things, right? Their vibrato, when they start a note, how they're starting the note, how they're ending the note, everything. I'm trying to teach them to be as anal as possible and to get everything out of those solos that they can. Not just regurgitating what they've learned, being able to play it, but actually learning everything, the phrasing, all of those little things that make those solos important, make them significant. So I have them perform that in front of the class with the transcription. And I've done it in the past, have them perform the solo with just the metronome.
So you mean with the audio, with the original audio, you mean the first and then the second, also sometimes just unaccompanied?
With the metronome.
Right. First of all, that's a fantastic exercise for everyone. Everyone that's studying jazz knows, hopefully, that you need to transcribe.
Yeah.
But you're getting into other areas of this, because yes, on one level, we need to learn the solos, to learn the language, to learn what so-and-so played, because it's fun, because it feels good to be able to play it back. I heard somebody say, once you've transcribed the solo, you're learning what it feels like to play and sound great. That's one of the aspects of it. Like, I'm doing this along with the recording. This is what it feels like to be swinging, to be really playing some great stuff. And what is also part of this, and maybe you can go into this a little bit more, the importance of studying the sound and inflections and style and phrasing of all these different players, because there is a myth out there that some people have heard that, if you transcribe too much or you copy other musicians too much, and then you just become this carbon copy of them. And that's something I try to explain to people. No, that's not at all what happens, because you end up becoming yourself in the end. But the act of, even if you're transcribing a player that maybe that's not the direction you're trying to go in, you can learn so much and become a better version of yourself through
Absolutely.
doing that. Maybe you could go into that.
Yeah, that's and then you made a good point. You said some people have the philosophy that if you study someone and you transcribe them, then you're going to sound exactly like them. First of all, that's impossible. We know it's impossible. But I think there is some truth to that, because I think there's got to be a point where you have to go in your own way. You have to trust that you have a way. And I think there are sometimes, everyone does not do that. Everyone doesn't have that moment where they say, okay, listen, I have transcribed Cannonball and Bird and Yusef and all these people. Okay, now it's me. Now I have to decide, what is me? What is my route? I think that's easier said than done, to be very honest with you. I really think it is. And I think that's a psychological thing where at least I talk to students about this. First of all, you have to believe, you have to trust yourself. You have to trust what's in you. And then you can't be afraid of people not liking what you play. I think once you get to that point, okay, some people are going to like me, some people aren't. Such as life. Then you will have the opportunity to truly be yourself. That's when I think that transition really goes to the extent that it can.
When it comes to improvisation, there's the one side, that we can teach, which is, okay, you do this, do that, transcribe this. Here's the harmony about that, and you can learn these facts, and you can kind of go through those motions and practice things. And then there's the side of it that you touched on, which is, really comes down to trusting yourself. And and it's not something that can really be taught, right, but it's something that I find doesn't get talked about enough. Right. Because it's very easy to teach people, I'll play a diminished scale over this, and that part is super easy. But to teach people to do this other thing, which is communicate with an audience, which is accept their own content that's coming out of them and feel good about it, and not be
deeper than music. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so that's a lot harder to teach, and guide someone through. So I would, how do you deal with that side of it with your students?
Well, I just try. I talk to them about it all the time. We have those conversations. we have very honest conversations. I tell my students, I'm not here to be your best friend. I'm not. I'm here to try to help you as much as I can, and I'm here to be as giving to you as I can, which means that I'm going to tell you the truth from my perspective. You may not always like what I have to say, but hopefully you will be mature enough to listen and accept what works, don't accept what doesn't work. So I think in that, first, you have anybody that you work with, be it a student or whoever, they have to trust you. It has to be a moment of trust where I can trust this person. I think trust comes from honesty, as I was saying before. So once students either trust or don't trust me, if they trust me, then they'll hear what I'm trying to say, right? I also tell them that it's not going to happen while you're in school. It's not going to happen then. You
That's
have to
honest.
yeah, it's not. Well, some may if you're a genius, right?
Right. But for most people,
make
it's,
absolute statements.
yeah.
But you have to trust the process. You have to trust the process of learning, asking questions, dealing with the answers, honesty, getting out playing, strip yourself of the ego, the part of your ego that is hindering you from growing. Keep the part of your ego that is helping you to believe in yourself and believe in what you're trying to achieve, right? But constantly trying to grow, accepting yourself, knowing that, like we said before, everyone is not going to like the way you play. That's just the way it is. But believing that you are on the path to discovering who you're supposed to be. Now, everyone's not supposed to be John Coltrane, Kenny Garrett. Everyone is not, that's not for everyone. But everyone is supposed to be who they are. And I think once you have these conversations and they start believing that, or even if they don't believe it at the point, it's the seed is planted so that later on, hopefully they'll go, oh, I get it now, right? I get it. So I think for me, just having real conversations, and making them accountable for what they're doing or what they're not doing.
Yeah. And something you mentioned before about made me think of the importance of being able to take criticism.
Absolutely.
And, you need to, as the professor or the teacher, you need to be able to deliver that criticism in a certain way. And everybody's different. Some people take it better than others, and you have to, you need to know the student first, say, okay, this is going to work. But if you're being honest, you're being honest. But everyone, in order to get better at anything, you need to be open to that criticism.
Right.
And and then the difficult part is in managing it, because you need to be accepting the criticism, looking at things honestly, being honest with yourself, but then also not beating yourself up constantly.
Thank you.
And say, okay, I need to work on this. Good. This is a positive. This is concrete information. This is something that I can work on that's going to immediately get me results. This is a positive. And you got to learn to take it that way and not be like, you can twist it, because that'll poison the whole process for you.
Absolutely.
And everybody's done that. Everyone's experienced that and reacted that way. And it's not something you learn right away. This takes some maturity. And that's one of the good things about being in a university program. You get, every week, every day, you get some criticism, and you get better at learning and taking that information and then turning it into a positive and, growth. Yeah. But as you said earlier, we all never appreciate it while we're in the situation nearly as much as we will down the road, when it has the time to sink in, and we can process that information. And also I find when you start teaching yourself, when you become a teacher, you appreciate all of the things you learn, that all those things just get filtered and go through
Yeah,
other students. And I understand all that so much better now.
comes from a completely different perspective when
Yeah.
you're on the other side. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's, that's the rewarding cycle of, student to teacher to, and it kind of keeps going. So could we now talk a little bit about the rest of the program? So the students, you said they have to do doubles. Okay. So, and that was interesting to me. So that's like a requirement. Everyone's got to do. So what are the doubles they need to learn?
Oh, flute and clarinet without question.
Okay. And
That's a no-brainer.
is piano part of this at
Oh,
all?
absolutely. Piano. Piano is part of the curriculum.
Right.
Piano is part of the curriculum. The flute and clarinet are not part of the curriculum, but you have to learn those. You have to take lessons on that if you're going to be in the lab bands, because in all of the lab bands, you have to play doubles. And, the students know that they know the realities of life after school. There's no way, at least I feel we teach that you've got to have options. It's very rare that you're just going to only play alto saxophone and that's it, and be an improviser and that's it. Not saying that it doesn't happen, but it doesn't really happen for everyone. So the reality of it is they know when they get here, we doubles, learn those. You're responsible for them.
And,
so that's pardon me?
And also, I imagine arranging is part of the curriculum as well.
Arranging, writing. We have a commercial music program, songwriting. So now we're talking about music business. We have a music business course now. So it's.
And things have changed. Things are changing rapidly, not just in every aspect of life, right? With internet and social media, and then you have AI, and you have all these things coming along. And the music business has changed a lot. And so I wonder, what sort of advice do you give your students when they're getting ready to move on, finish school, and go out and start their careers? What sort of advice?
Well, I think I was kind of mentioning that earlier. Options. Options. Have as many options as you can. Meet as many people as you can. Be nice to everyone. and be ready when those opportunities come. Now, there will be opportunities that come and you're not ready. Learn from those. Right? If you do experience disappointment, which is inevitable, if you're going to pout, go ahead and pout for a little time, but change it around and make it a positive. Learn from the experience. So I try to teach the students, like I said, options, 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 options. If this is not open to you right now, okay, check out this other door. Boom, 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 boom. And I can't stress it enough, be good people. Be good people. Be good people. I really feel, Jay, that now, since we have school, we have all of these educational options, right? We have the internet. I really feel that everybody can play now, to be very honest with you. I feel like everyone has access to everything. So there's just a certain level of musicianship that is standard now. That wasn't standard maybe when I was younger, because we didn't have all of these outlets, but now it is. So there's a part that you're going to have to bring to whatever situation that you're in first of all, bring something unique, but be someone that people want to be around. Because I think you know as well, you have your own bands, you have your own projects. To get a player of great quality, I'm sure you have no problem. But you want someone that has great quality that you want to be around as well.
Absolutely.
That's, oh man, I like being around this person.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think
Absolutely.
that, there you go.
And there are people that are fantastic players that nobody ever calls because either they're not somebody they want to be around, or they have some, issues with, all different things. They show up late, all those are the things. And someone who might be just a really good player, but can be relied on and everybody loves, they're always going to be working.
Please come. Please,
they're always going to have a gig.
please. So those are the types of things I try to teach my students and try to share with them.
Could we get in now? We got into some really good stuff there, but now could we get into some saxophone specific things? Sure. Maybe some things that you like to teach, some things, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be just saxophone specific. Could be improvisation, could be rhythm, whatever. But some things that you're like, I figured out that this way of teaching this concept, I've had a lot of success with it.
Well, things that come to mind right now are time. I have my students time and clarity of ideas and clarity of whatever you're doing. Okay. So what I like to teach, and I've had some success with this, is when we're working on time, I have my students, we only put the metronome on beat 4. That's it. We never have it on 2 and 4. And when they come, they always come to my office for after office hours, and they want to play tunes together. So we don't have a bass player, we don't have a piano player. We just put the metronome on 4. And we'll play tunes in different keys. And what I'm looking for is if they're making that metronome swing. Right? How does it feel? I've found that has really helps them with their time. It also helps them because I have assignments in class where we learn tunes through playing them as cadenzas. So if we're working on giant steps, we're going to play it as a cadenza. We'll play it as a ballad. We'll slow it down. We'll really pay attention to how we're going from key center to key center, or change to change to change, so that we can hear everything that's going on. So, for instance, I have them play giant steps as a cadenza, and I'll record them. And then I'll say, okay, accompany yourself on piano. Can you hear where you are? I found that to be extremely helpful. If they can't hear where they are and they're playing it, the band certainly is not going to hear where they are.
And when you say cadenza, you mean like somewhat out of time, like the rhythm section stopped, it's at the end of the tune, and let's play through the chord changes in this sort of free way, but they all have to be there and be. Right. We got to be able to hear it and follow it. Right.
I found that to be extremely helpful. I do that myself every day if I'm working on it too. And I'll record
what
myself.
I would love, I heard you were practicing before. I would love if you could give us an example of that on the horn.
So what I was playing, I didn't record, so I was, well, maybe you're recording. If I went back, I would try to play it on piano. I'm playing Embraceable You. So you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I love it.
Trying I was like, first part. Anyway, so that really was, I don't feel I was playing as well as I wanted to. I wasn't doing it like I wanted, but
No, it sounded fantastic. I think that's a great exercise. I'm going to start doing that.
You know where I got that from?
No.
You'll never believe where I got it from. Have you ever seen the movie Car Wash?
That's like a 70s movie, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a recollection.
It was like when I was very young. There was a scene in there where this one of the workers at the car wash got fired, and he went home and he was playing his saxophone. And that resonated with me. I was like, wow, that's the coolest thing in the world, just to play your saxophone alone like that. I don't know, I was young. And then I was thinking as, well, you hear people play cadenzas. I remember my students are like, what do you do on a cadenza? What are we supposed to do? Well, there's several things that you can do on a cadenza, but one thing I like to do is play cadenzas that, for me, that make sense harmonically.
Yeah.
Right? And so I was thinking, well, hold on. That's a good way to practice tunes, going through different keys, just taking your time. And then on top of that, you're learning cadenzas. Like if you get
you're ready to do cadenzas all day long. This is fantastic.
And Freddie Hubbard, he would play the beginning to Stardust, right? So beautifully, and he'd go through the changes, and then he'd go into Body and Soul. And I thought that was so hip. You can be playing Embraceable You, but your cadenza can be on,
whatever.
Everything Happens to Me.
Right. That's brilliant.
So anyway, I felt that that's helpful to students.
I absolutely love that. I got to say, I love everything that we talked about. This one is like, I do lots of these interviews and I enjoy it. I was just thinking earlier today that I figured out how to get free lessons from all these great saxophone players by doing this podcast. Basically,
yeah, me too. I listen to your podcast.
Well, that's the thing, and that's what I want to communicate to people. Is like, do you realize that if you just watch all these conversations I'm having with people like yourself and Vincent Herring, you mentioned that, everybody, you're getting just the best of their stuff. There's one thing to be in the office and doing the lesson every. I mean, that's one thing. Right. But once you've done that, you understand that everybody has a certain amount of information, and sometimes it takes years and lifetimes for all of that to sink in. But the stuff that really stays with you is usually the stuff to where the horn is, isn't there, and it's the, it's the conversation that's really giving you all these things that sink in and stick with you forever.
Yeah. That's why I
lost you
listened.
now.
Man, I was I'm checking those out. I'm checking out Patrick Barkley and Emmanuel Wilkins
Mm.
and George Coleman. I'm
Oh
like,
yeah.
what? These are like free lessons with these.
Absolutely. So for me, I listen to them multiple times because then after I go and I edit, then I listen back. So, and yeah, so I just want to encourage people. I know there's a certain amount of people that really watch. I also know there's a certain amount of people that are like, oh, I don't have 45 minutes to learn saxophone. You know, I don't have that sort of time, you know. So anyway, I really appreciate it. This has been fantastic, and let's do another one at some point.
Sure, I appreciate it. Thank you for including me. I'm honored. I can't tell you how honored I am. I've seen the wonderful players that you have interviewed, and yeah, I'm humbled. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
That's kind of you. That's very kind of you to say.